What's up, everyone? Welcome to the NBA Weekend Podcast. My name is Dawson Shine, and I'm your host. We're going to be talking about the NBA playoffs because they began yesterday with an amazing first day of first-round games. I'm going to be talking about every single game from Saturday's entertaining first day, from start to finish. The first game of the NBA playoffs was in another country, actually. We, the North, the Toronto Raptors, faced off against the Indiana Pacers. The Raptors were in full playoff form, choking against the 7th seed Pacers in their own arena 100-90. Lowry and DeRozan had postseason form especially, shooting a combined 8 for 32, 9 turnovers, and Lowry shooting an amazing 3 for 8 from the free throw line. Man, was he on fire last night. Someone really should have put him out. The only Raptors bright spots were Jonas Valanciunas with 19 rebounds and 12 points, but he did shoot very poorly, 4 for 14. And also Corey Joseph, having 18 points. Now, Corey Joseph's interesting because he actually seems like a very young player, but he's the most experienced playoff player on the roster. He, of course, won a ring with the San Antonio Spurs back in 2014, and that experience showed yesterday with him being the only one who could actually shoot consistently and get to the hoop. Everyone else on the roster was really choking away in this game, and it looked like a typical playoff game for the Toronto Raptors. Unfortunately for Raptors fans, Corey Joseph was definitely not enough in this matchup against the Indiana Pacers, because Paul George was amazing. PG-13 is back in the playoffs, and his destruction of the Raptors should have been rated R, because he started slow in the first half, but came alive in the second half, hitting clutch shot after clutch shot after clutch shot in the fourth quarter. He finished with 33 points, 6 assists, in his first playoff game back since his leg injury 2 years ago. This series appears to be a tight one, just like I predicted, and Toronto star players cannot get their offense going against the defensive efforts of Paul George and George Hill. They really need to get going, because if the star players in Lowry and DeRozan do not start scoring like they did in the regular season, the Raptors are not going to be able to win this series. They're going to get upset from a 7th seed, because they require DeRozan and Lowry to play well if they want to win. Their roster is just not good enough otherwise. So, we're going to be having a very interesting series. And also an interesting storyline, Paul's continued to crush the Raptors. Obviously, Paul Pierce last year destroying them with the Wizards, and also the year before that with the Nets destroying them, and now we have Paul George. So, I think it's a pretty funny storyline to think about. But I do expect a Raptors victory in Game 2 to tie the series, because if they lose, they might actually get swept in this series, and I don't think I can see the Raptors getting swept again in the playoffs. Then again, the Raptors have lost 7 straight playoff games, going back 2 years ago, so who would really be that surprised? However, moving on. The second game of the day was the Warriors versus the Rockets, and the Warriors shut down the Rockets 104-78. At the beginning of the game, Steph and Patrick Beverley, who was the starting point guard for the Houston Rockets, got into a little skirmish. Steph got really pissed after that and outscored the Rockets on his own 16-15 in the first quarter and finished with 24 points in the first half. However, that's where his night ended, unfortunately. He tweaked his ankle a few minutes into the second half and was in and out of the locker room till the end of the game, which is really not encouraging for Warriors fans because we do know that Steph's ankles have had a lot of problems, especially early in his career. The Warriors did have no problem, however, continuing the blowout with him on the bench. However, Steve Kerr, the coach of the Warriors, did say that Steph may be ruled out for Game 2 depending on how he's feeling with his ankle. That could be something to watch out for as an NBA fan, and as a Warriors fan, I'd be very nervous if Steph is not playing. On the Rockets side, besides a mini run in the third quarter from Harden, it was an overall poor game. There was really no bright spots. The only interesting fact I have for you guys is that it was the first game in Harden's career without a free throw while playing more than 30 minutes in the game. The refs were calling nothing, and especially because he was in early foul trouble, which limited his aggressiveness throughout the game. If you really want to see an interesting series, and if you really want to see the Rockets play and win a game maybe, the only way they're going to be able to accomplish that is if they can lock down better on the defensive end, and if JB Bickerstaff can actually fix his rotations. Because man, are his rotations trash. Honestly, his roster is not great. It's obviously not the best playoff team I've seen in a while, but the fact that he plays Corey Brewer 20-something minutes a game and tries to play him on the three-point line consistently on offense, despite the fact that he can't hit a three. He's 0 for 22 in his last 22 attempts, which goes back all the way to March. I think that JB Bickerstaff needs to look at his roster and look at his lineups and see what's going to work, because what he has right now isn't going to work. It's just not. The only player that's consistently performing is Harden, and actually last night, he didn't even perform that well. which is why they got blown out by 26 points. So JB Bickerstaff needs to take a hard look at his roster and decide who is going to play in the next game, because in my opinion, he's going to need to bench Corey Brewer. He should maybe look into seeing whether or not Michael Beasley should play more in the next game, see if his instant offense might be able to help the Rockets, and his effort on defense was really good this season, unlike past seasons. So he could be a very good bright spot for the Rockets if they play him more. But besides that, I don't believe it's going to be that interesting of a series. However, there is a really interesting series after this one, the third game, which was a very entertaining one between the Boston Celtics and the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks won this nail-biter 102-101, but this game certainly did not start as a nail-biter, with the Hawks forcing tons of outside shots in the first half by packing the paint, preventing Isaiah Thomas from getting into the paint, preventing Jay Crowder from driving to the hoop, and especially preventing Evan Turner from getting going in the mid-range. And the Celtics were unable to convert any of their outside shots. They ended the first half shooting 12 of 52 and 2 of 16 from 3. 2 of 16, that's 12%. The Hawks had the lead 51-34 in what appeared to be another blowout. And of course, no one wants to watch blowout after blowout in playoff games. That's no fun. But the Celtics did what they did in the previous game against the Miami Heat at the end of the regular season. They fought back, and they came back in this game. They began to drive into the paint and get better shots. Players like Isaiah Thomas and Marcus Smart began to hit outside shots as well. The Celtics tied the game late at 80 points, and then also took the lead 83-80 off of a Jay Crowder 3. But then, once it tied at 88-88 between the Hawks and the Celtics, it went downhill for the Celtics. Avery Bradley went down with a hamstring injury after trying to dribble up the court, which forced the Celtics and Coach Stevens to put Evan Turner into the lineup at the end of the game, despite the fact that they really needed the spacing on the floor, and Evan Turner is not known for his ability to shoot the outside shot. The Hawks then regained the lead permanently, despite the Celtics having a few key plays from Isaiah and Jay Crowder. The Celtics were unable to convert a bunch of open threes, especially from Marcus Smart, Jonas Jerebko, and Evan Turner. Jeff Teague of the Hawks closed out the game in the pick and roll and also at the line. He finished with 23 points and 12 assists, while his opponent, Isaiah Thomas, finished with 27 points and 8 assists. It was a great duel, but Teague and his team got the best of the first game. But man, is this series set up to be another entertaining one. It looks like it's going to be like the 7-game series back in 2008 between the Celtics and the Hawks, back when Zaza Pachulia and Kevin Garnett went at each other's throats. That was an entertaining series, and this one looks just as good, and I can't wait. But man, last night was a little bit depressing, especially as a Celtics fan. But you got to give the Hawks credit because they won on their home court when they really needed to. The final game of the night was another team winning on their home court, and that was OKC versus Dallas Mavericks. But this one was anything but a nail-biter, with OKC crushing the Mavs, and I cannot emphasize crushing enough. 108-70. Yep, that's a 38-point victory in the NBA playoffs. And God, this game is why I almost want to implement a mercy rule in the NBA, because OKC scored the first 9 points of the game, and it was never any closer. They never looked back. They were up 26 points at halftime, then 42 points going into the fourth quarter. Let's just say it never got interesting in this game. It was a 42-point game with 12 minutes to go. That's ridiculous. Russell Westbrook had 24 points and 11 assists. He also had the worst pregame outfit I've ever seen, which looked more like a homeless man wearing a tablecloth. But that's beside the point. He had 24 points, 11 assists before resting early. KD pitched in with 23 points. Another X factor of the game was Enes Kanter, who was big in the first half with 16 points and 13 rebounds, and then really didn't play too much in the second half due to the blowout. Efforts from the whole team, especially Serge Ibaka too, led to the Thunder cruising to a Game 1 victory against the aging, veteran Mavericks. The only bright side for the Mavericks was really Dirk, with his usual 18 points and decent performance on offense. However, he was just as bad as the whole team on defense, as usual. Dirk is not known for his defense anymore, and it shows. Let's just say he got eaten up by Enes Kanter and Serge Ibaka in the paint. Dirk Nowitzki is no longer a shot blocker. He's not going to be able to handle those two monsters in the paint. Never mind even the bench warmers on the Thunder. So, the Mavericks looked completely outclassed. And honestly, I may have been wrong when I predicted a 4-1 victory for the Thunder. Because after last night's domination, I think the Mavs might just want to forfeit. There's no way that they win a game in this series. I'm going to stand by my prediction 4-1, but man, I don't believe it. because this Mavericks team looked outclassed in every facet of the game. They didn't look like they could hang with the Thunder. The Thunder were too young, too good, and too skilled at every single position. And the Mavericks just don't have the ability to do that. I mean, first game of the series, they were rested. They're coming into this game thinking that they're going to try and maybe steal a game in OKC, and they get blown out by 38 points. That's awful. But, to recap, the first day of the NBA playoffs was very entertaining. We had the great matchup between the Pacers and the Raptors in the first game, which was really entertaining up until the end, with Paul George helping to close out that game, and the Raptors hanging in it despite poor shooting from almost everyone on their roster. So that was entertaining to watch. We also had the nail-biter between the Atlanta Hawks and the Celtics, with the huge comeback in the second half, and then the clutch showing by Jeff Teague at the end of the game to help ice the game. But then we also had two massive blowouts between the Thunder and the Mavericks, and the Warriors and the Rockets, which were both relatively unentertaining in the second half, especially the Mavericks game, because we barely even got to see the stars of the Thunder due to the massive blowout they had. Hopefully, today's games are going to be even more entertaining, especially the Heat-Hornets game, which should be really close and really interesting. I'm expecting a huge upset in that game. I'll be back tomorrow to break down the games that are happening today, and look forward to the future of these series, because it's going to be interesting to see the breakdown after the first game. Thanks for listening. Feel free to comment your thoughts or feedback, and have a great weekend, everyone.